Hey guys, welcome back. This is Library of Orthonc, LOTR TCG, back with another video. I'm super excited to share this deck with you guys. This I have been working on longer than any deck I've ever made. This is the largest deck I've ever made, craziest deck I've ever made, most expensive deck I've ever made, all of the above. So we'll get into it and show you it. I'm thinking just because of the size of this deck, this is going to for sure be a multi-part video. We'll see how far we get today, see if we get through the Free People's part of it. But Free People's side is a Dwarven discard Realm of Dwaro-Delph deck. And I'll go into what I mean by that. But this is an expanded format deck. So this is the format where all cards are legal, the most complex, the most high-powered format. And obviously this deck works really well for that, or needs that format to function, I should say. So I'm going to go through this deck with you and show you all the cards. This is all foil in the cards that can be foil, as well as, masterworks of the cards that can be masterworks and so forth. So really excited. I've been working on this deck for a really long time to get this all put together. And to show it to you, you can't see it from this angle, but just to spoil the surprise here, this is a 212 card deck. So to give you the idea, I will show you this. I have huge hands and I can barely fit this deck in two hands. That's the deck right there. So just to give you an idea, this is a regular 70 card Lord of the Rings deck. So this thing is just huge. But there it is. And we're just going to look at the Free People's half of this today. So I'm going to go ahead and set the shadow side to the side. And we're going to focus on the Free People's part of this today. So first off, we're going to go over our starting fellowship. So our leader of this deck, and I'm actually going to stack this whole thing off because I'm just going to knock this over while I'm talking. So our ring bearer for this deck is Gimli, Bearer of Grudges. And you may notice this is a special Gimli, Bearer of Grudges. This is a badly miscut one, but for a fun, janky deck like this, it's super cool because his border goes straight off to the border. If you can see that there, really neat. And then actually like at the bottom here, this is either Isildur or Elendil or some R+ that's below Gimli. And you can see like the double border plus more at the bottom there. And like I said, no border at the top there, which is really cool. So I definitely enlisted this man to pilot this janky mess. Or I say it's mess. It's actually a kind of a beautiful work of art, but the deck looks like a mess for sure if you don't know how it works. But I will distill that down for you guys. So Gimli is our ring bearer. He's going to be bearing the Ring of Rings, largely just for corruption protection when you have an alt ring bearer, just making sure that they do have enough resistance. And then our starting fellowship consists of Gandalf the Wise Guide. This just protects against all sorts of weird stuff from happening to you, and it's Gandalf. So that's the two reasons it's in here. When I say protects against weird stuff, this is the Gandalf that can exert twice to cancel shadow events. So that's very important just to keep you protected and keep the cards on the table that you need on the table. Like if someone tries to drop a Saruman's power on you or something like that. So Gandalf the Wise Guide. And then, yes, we do have one more, which is Smeagol the Poor Creature. As I said, this is a discarding deck, and this has the ability just discard a card from your hand to make Smeagol strength +1. So this basically lets you discard cards at will. So he's an important addition to the starting fellowship. So there's the starting fellowship. Definitely an interesting, unique combination here. Gimli, Gandalf, and Smeagol. Oh, and I should say, this is not an original deck of mine. This is from the expanded forums on Last Homely House, and this deck was created by Sergeant Drano, a top expanded player. And I believe he actually went through 10 iterations of this deck. So I took his very last iteration to build. I didn't want to presume myself to be more experienced with this deck. When you look at that thread, you can see how much work he put into it. So I basically took his final version of the deck. So thank you to Sergeant Drano for creating this masterpiece. All right, so then getting into our characters. The character selection is actually pretty small in this deck. And we start off with a full play set of Durin 3. Love this card. Obviously, he's a big dwarf, and he has the ability of strength +1 for each artifact in possession he bears. So he's just a big, beastly dwarf. You don't get the deploy discount, obviously, in this context, unless you get another dwarf down first. But right now, he would cost a full 4. But that's not a big deal. He's well worth it. So we've got a full play set of Durin. Like I said, you usually see him in a starting fellowship, but this time you don't, because we absolutely need that Gandalf in there. Then next we have a full play set of 4 Dane Ironfoots. So this one is from the expanded Middle-earth, and his effect is each of your other dwarves and Gandalf men is Twilight cost -1. That can come into play. And then has an ability of, at the start of the regroup phase, you may discard a Dwarven card or Dwarven or Gandalf condition from play to discard a minion from play. So yeah, that's something too to keep an eye on as far as that ability. But again, just a nice dwarf with a nice body with some nice abilities. So that is Dane Ironfoot. So those are the 2 dwarves. We're looking to get one of those guys down at least to support Gimli. Then we do have 1 copy of Grimbeorn. Anyone who knows Expanded knows that Grimbeorn is a force to be reckoned with, especially with his Beorning axe, because he self-heals, and then he can exert to gain a lot of strength. And then with his axe, he'll start taking cards back from discard, which that's what this deck is all about. We just have 1 copy of this in here. Intend to get it with a Save from the Fire. So that's why we have 1 copy of that. Then we have Radagast, also just 1 copy. You guys know what Radagast does. He lets you move limit +1 and really just keep your deck going faster when it needs to. So there's Radagast the Brown. And that is it. Those are our 4 companions. So to recap, we've got full play sets of the 2 dwarves, and then single copies of the 2 wizards. So just 10 copies there of companions. Then for our allies, should come as no surprise, we are running the 4 full play set of Barlam and Butterbur. If you guys know Expanded, Barlaman is just an absolute beast in Expanded. And as you guys know, this is going to be a discard deck. So this part about taking cards into hand from the discard pile is where Barlaman's really going to shine. You know, if you incidentally milled one of these guys to your discard by accident, you know, you can get him back with Barlaman. So we are playing a full play set of 4 Barlaman Butterburs. And then we've just got 1 Hugin, the Emerciary from Laketown. That's for if you need to search a card out of your deck. He can put it back in the deck. Obviously, tons of cards are going to go into our discard. If you need to get them back into the draw deck, Hugin can do that for you. Definitely a weird card, but good one to have around. And then lastly, this guy is also a dwarf and has some other good ability of being able to get involved in a skirmish if you need to stop a swarm. So, and he can, of course, hold dwarven weapons, as well as interesting to remember that these guys are Gandalf men. So even though they're allies, they are Gandalf men. So like when we talk about each of your Gandalf men is Twilight cost -1, you know, Hugin is free, for example. So there's some weird interactions like that. You know, these guys can hold Beorning axes because they're allies. Weird stuff like that. And of course, Theron can hold extra Dwarven axes and those sort of things if you have them and just need to cycle through. So there is our allies. Now, getting into the rest of the deck here, I'm actually going to go ahead and skip possessions and so forth for now to actually show off our conditions, because our conditions really describe how the rest of this deck works. I usually pair possessions first, but I think before we go any further, you've seen who the characters are, but in terms of how the deck functions, you're really going to need to see this next part, which is our conditions. So this is our namesake condition, the Realm of Dworodelf. So you are going to see a full play set of 4 of that, of course. And what that does is you can discard the top 3 cards of your draw deck to make a dwarf strength +1, and if you are underground, also a damage +1. So doesn't seem like a huge bonus, but the huge bonus is getting to discard 3 cards. You just want to fill your discard pile as much as possible, and so this allows you to do that. Now, I do, as I understand it, the ruling is even once you've gotten your +3, if for some reason you want to discard more cards, you can continue to discard more cards, but you just won't get any more power once you've reached your limit. So you get to your +3, and then if you do it a 4th time, let's say, for example, you can still discard those 3 cards, attempt to add the +1, and then the limit will limit you down to +3. But you still can initiate the action to discard 3 more cards. So this is just so important for filling up your discard pile, is the Realm of Dworodelf. Then the second thing we look to fill up our discard pile, and this one more so we're looking for the effect of this. So the cost is to discard the top 3 cards of your draw deck. That sounds familiar. But then the effect is to play a dwarven weapon from your discard pile. So this one I had to look up per the comprehensive rules document. This does require a dwarven a dwarven weapon to be in your discard pile in order for you to initiate this action. So it's basically discard 3 to take a dwarven weapon. But what you can't do, for example, you cannot say, I'm going to initiate this on an empty discard pile and just keep discarding 3 until I find a weapon, and then be like, oh, there's a weapon, I'll take that. As I understand it, this can only be initiated if you can spot a dwarven weapon in your discard pile. It's not, it doesn't say that on its face, but there is some ruling to that effect. So this one is not as unlimited as Realm of Dworodelf, so it's not as effective at fully discarding, but it is effective to just keep getting back all your weapons. So that is awesome. We do see a full play set of 4 of those. This one's also non-unique, so you can just keep slapping these down, as opposed to the Dworodelf is a unique card, unfortunately, so you can't, can only have 1 down at once. Don't know the reasoning behind that. I always think that's just strange which ones they chose. Like, why is this non-unique versus this is unique? Doesn't seem to have a lot of reasoning behind it, but that's what they are. So then the other major dwarven condition that you do play is Ever My Heart Rises. I love this card. I think it's just beautiful. You see the Misty Mountains there with the foiled sky. So basically, this says, plays to your support area. When you play this condition, reveal the top 6 cards of your draw deck and stack them here. So you just mill 6, put it on top of the deck, and then spot a dwarf and discard the top card of your draw deck to take a Free People's card here into hand. So basically then once you've got your 6 cards here that you want, again, on average, 3 Shadow and 3 Free People's. But if there's any of those 3 Free People's cards you want, you get to discard another card off the top of your deck to take it. And you can do that again, discard another card to take it. Obviously, that is subject to the rule of 4 since you're taking a card into hand during the fellowship phase. But it is a great way to do it. The one thing I don't like is that this does not say that it just gets discarded when you're done. But that's like when I'm saying you're done, when like you're out of cards or when you only have shadow cards left. The good thing is, again, you can use like a Dane Ironfoot to say, I'm going to discard a dwarf condition from play to discard a minion to get rid of an Ever My Heart Rises so that you can play another Ever My Heart Rises. Because again, it's unique. You can't have more than one on the table at a time. So there's some tricks like that. And then of course, cards on this are stacked for anything that references stacked cards. And stacked cards, if you're not aware, they are not in play. So like if you accidentally had like a Dane Ironfoot or a Durin on the card, it does not like prevent you from playing that character. And in fact, those would be great ones to have on here because you could take it off of there and then play it. So that is Ever My Heart Rises. Then we've got 2 copies of our final Dwarven condition, and that is Preparations. So you'll see that there is some synergy with this later on, but basically this is a card that will hold stacked conditions because you can exert a dwarf to stack a card from your discard pile here. So anytime you need to get a card out of your discard pile to stack on a condition, this allows you to do that. And then you can, once per game, wound a minion for each, wound a minion skirmishing a dwarf for each dwarf card stacked here. So if you had 2 cards stacked here, you could wound a minion twice, for example. But then you do lose the condition once you do that. So I think largely you want to keep this in play to try to combo it with Slaked Thirsts, which you'll see later on, and I'll reference again when we do that. That's some cool foiling. I like the armor on there. Very nicely done foiling. And I do love the Dwarven runes there too. So that is Preparations. Then moving into just to finish out our conditions, I'll give you the conditions of our other cultures, which is the long-stemmed pipe. I always felt this should be a possession, but it's a condition. Probably some set 17 proofreading going on because to me a pipe should be a possession. But basically, this says that you can search your deck for a Gandalf card and put it in your discard pile. So again, in a deck like this, just getting a Gandalf card straight in your discard pile is absolutely great. Combos obviously perfectly with Barlaam Butterbur, who says you may take a Gandalf event into hand from discard pile, so you can put it in with the long stem pipe, take it back with Barlaam. That's kind of the idea behind it. And then also, of course, combine this with the Bjorning Axe, which I believe unrestricted takes any card, any Gandalf card. So fantastic. Got a couple copies of the long stemmed pipe. Then we do have 1 copy of Perspective. Perspective is just good for shutting off minions. This does have an errata because it basically says that you can shut off all minions, and it's been errated to basically only shut off a single minion. But still, like if you were dealing with, I don't think Inkea necessarily is a threat, but that's the one example I like to always give is to prevent. This is heavily typically used to prevent an Inkea from using its ability. So you basically add through, if you have a wizard and have Perspective down, you can add 2 threats to basically just prevent an Inkea. So, or any other minion, of course. So that's a nice protection card. And then lastly, we've got a couple Smeagol cards in Gladden Homestead to deal with conditions, and don't look at them to wound minions skirmishing Smeagol, and of course discard cards from our hand. So that finishes out our conditions. Moving on then, as I said, to our possessions. So for possessions, we do have a lot. So big chunk of possessions here, because again, getting back dwarven weapons with the Beneath the Mountains is a strong aspect of this deck. So let's look at some of our dwarven weapons. We do have the Axe of Erebor, have this in here twice. This is exclusively for Gimli because this is from 2 towers. And back then they don't say, plays to a dwarf if it is Gimli. It just says bearer must be Gimli. He is damage +1. That's great because, again, if you recall, Gimli, Bearer of Grudges, once additional damage. That's his part of his effect for vitality as well as just for causing more damage. But this then discard a dwarven condition or a card stacked on a dwarven condition to make Gimli strength +1. So like I said, if we have like Ever My Heart Rises going, that's a good way to get rid of any card, because while it has to be a dwarven condition, any card stacked on a dwarven condition qualifies. So like if you have those 3 shadow cards stuck on here, you can use them to pump Gimli with the Axe of Erebor. So we do have that twice. Obviously we can only play 1, but just twice to get more broad access to it. Again, beautiful foiling on that. Then we do have 1 copy of the Dwarven Axe. That's going to just be for our additional dwarf whether that's going to be Dane or Durin. Then we have some hand axes in here. We do have triple hand axe. So again, Gimli, Dane, Durin, Theron, even if you need to. And these can be thrown to add to the archery total. So these are 0 cost and really easy to cycle. So we do have 3 of those. So always just keep getting those back. And then Dwarven Bracers are awesome. Those prevent wounds. So definitely want to get Dwarven Bracers down as well. So we've got a couple copies of the Dwarven Bracers. Dwarven Armor, I gather this is for Gimli. 0 cost, can't be overwhelmed unless his strength is tripled. So that's just going to make it very hard to swarm a Gimli with, a Gimli with a Axe of Erebor. You're already at 8, so you're going to have to get up to 24. And then even if he uses one thing on the axe, every time, you need 3 more to overwhelm him. So that's just a fantastic card to help protect Gimli. Then we do have his helm as well. Must be Gimli, has the typical take no more than 1 wound. And then also it has the effect of discard Gimli's helm to prevent all wounds to him. Now that, as you guys may know, there's a threat trick with that where you can basically discard this in the skirmish to prevent all wounds to him if a character is dying, and then he can just soak all the threat wounds. Then we get into some of our artifacts here for the dwarves. So I love this card. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck from our set 17. So it's a more not well-known card, but it's the Ring of Artifice. And this just is really cool with a discard theme deck because its effect is Bearer is strength +1 for each dwarven artifact in your discard pile. So he just keeps getting stronger. Once you wear one of these, he keeps getting stronger for the other rings that are just sitting in your discard pile. Also makes the bearer damage +1, which is great. There's so many damage modification effects in here. And then this is also extremely strong. And then you can discard it to take any non-event dwarfen card into hand from your discard pile. So this is really a great fish out of the discard pile card. So we're going to be looking to, do that a lot. So we do have a full play set of those. And yeah, these set 17 RF play sets are tough to put together, but we've got the full set of 4 Ring of Artifice there. Then we do have the Ring of Fury, of course, damage +2. Really like that one for Gimli. Can be discarded to do healing as well. And then here are the beauties, guys. So this is the Bjorning Axe. I mean, look at that foiling. Look at the beautiful Gandalf quilted pattern on this. This is one of my favorite LOTR cards. So we do have the Bjorning Axe. Bearer must be a man. Obviously, Bjorn is the main one that you're looking to put this on, but it also is, Grimbjorn. Grimbjorn is who you're looking to put it on, but it also can, in a pinch, be put on other Gandalf men. And it is non-unique, so you can have multiple down if you needed to. But really, it's in here for this. While Grimbjorn is bearing this possession, each time he wins a skirmish, you may take any Gandalf card from your discard pile into hand. That's not just an event. That's any card. So that is just an amazing, amazing effect. So you're looking to get this on to Grimbjorn, win those skirmishes very easily with his ability, and then just free ride cards out of your discard pile, whatever is needed at the time. So huge card for the deck. Like I said, in a pinch, we do run 2 of it. So in a pinch, if you had to throw one on Barlaman, Barlaman can wear the axe since he is a man, and then that would give him another exertion so he could get another event out of your discard pile. So kind of cool. Not your primary thing that you're looking to do, but if you had to, you can throw this on to Barlaman and get another use out of him. But like I said, make sure that you have one on Grimbjorn first. But we are running 2 copies of these absolute beauties. These, as you guys know, are, I'd say the RFs are hard to find. The set 17-18 Masterworks are incredibly hard to find. And in particular, the Bjorning Axe is a very tough card to find because it's so good and because everyone wants it for their expanded decks with Grimbjorn. Then, to go along with that, this is my favorite LOTR card. We have Shadowfax, Greatest of the Miras, and yes, 2 of those, and yes, 2 Masterworks. This card is just an absolute beauty. In my opinion, most beautiful card in the Lord of the Rings game. Probably most beautiful non-ring card, let's say that. Most beautiful non-ring card in the game, and just huge piece to put on that Gandalf Wise Guide. This alone gives your Gandalf the ability to use his ability twice, because as you may recall, Gandalf's ability is to exert twice to cancel an event. So once you get this, he's up to 5 vitality, so then he can exert twice, and he can do that 2 times. So definitely want to get that down with our Gandalf. And again, just 2 copies to make sure that we get one. It's obviously unique and can't have more than one down, but of course we want to get this down. This is also like the Sam Son of Hamfast of Expanded, in that it's the best way to remove burdens, because you can just add a threat to remove a burden. So if there is any sort of threats of burdens, if you're having a problem with burdens, you can add a threat to remove them. And I just love the +1 to all aspects there too. Again, I just absolutely love this card. Think it's a beautiful artwork, beautiful design, and beautiful card. So 2 copies of Shadowfax. So that gets us through our possessions. Now we do have a couple of followers in here. So the followers are going to be Palando, the far traveling one. Do have a full playset of that. This is from the Bloodlines expansion, and yes, you guessed it, these are all masterworks also. But again, just a beautiful card, and helps get rid of your opponent's conditions. So wanting to have one of these down all times. So that's why we've got 4 copies, just to dig out, get it on Gandalf, and then basically, if you can get him winning skirmishes, keep your opponent's conditions really under control. And then last but not least, where did it go? Sorry guys, I appear to have set him aside. There he is. Deagle, the Fateful Finder, is our last follower. So we do play a full play set of 4 of these. This is fantastic in 2 ways. One way, of course, is if he's not assigned, if his bearer is not assigned to a skirmish, you can get artifacts or possessions out of your deck. So very key to get key artifacts or possessions, such as Shadowfax, Bjorning Axe, any of those axes you need for your dwarves. This guy can get them out. And then you'll see too that this Deagle synergizes with our Smeagol on our shadow side. So we do definitely have a full play set of 4 of those, because having extra copies of this is actually relevant, which you'll see later on when we cover the shadow side. All right. We are down to just events. So thank you guys for bearing with me on this extra long video, but we are going to push through. And now that I say we're down to just events, I see that I had 3 cards on top of my event stack that did not go there, and that is 2 Gandalf Staff. Kind of an obvious one, of course, just to add vitality to Gandalf, as well as the Narya to add more vitality to Gandalf. So just like I was talking about Shadowfax, like how awesome is it to get a Gandalf stacked up with all of this stuff? So you've got Gandalf, Narya, Staff, Shadowfax, and you're just sitting there with a 7 vitality Gandalf. Like, how good does that feel? So, and how sweet looking are all those cards? So just to finish off, I think you guys know about Narya, you know about Gandalf's Staff. I won't go into those too much. Now to our events. So the first stack of events I'm going to go through is 3 full play sets, and that is Dwarf Lords, 4 copies, Look to My Coming, 4 copies, and Naked Waste, 4 copies. So what are these and what do they have in common? These are the discard events where you may remove 4 cards of the affiliation of the event from the game in order to play it from your discard pile. So these are pumps that you get to play out of your discard pile simply by exiling other cards from your discard. Sorry, if I say exile, graveyard, these mill, obviously these are magic terms for people who know magic, but I'll try to use the correct terminology here. You can remove cards from the game from your discard pile to play these pumps. So we do have this, of course, and this works on any dwarf that bears a hand weapon. So that's going to be Gimli, your ring bearer, as well as, Durin or Dane. So that works to pump those characters. Look to My Coming, of course, as you may realize, you have to spot Gandalf, so he has to be still alive, but it makes any Gandalf companion strength +3, so that's going to work on Gandalf, Grimbeorn, or Radagast. And then lastly, we have Naked Waste, which is spot Smeagol to make a ringbound strength +3. So again, the cool thing, of course, that works on Smeagol, but also that will work on your Gimli, because Gimli is your ring bearer and your ring bearer is always ring bound. So that Naked Waste is another ring bearer protection spell. So you have all 12 available that can be played out of your discard pile. So that is a really nice thing when you can just, you're in a skirmish and you're just playing cards out of your discard pile. So we do have the full 12 of those. I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about preparations. We do run 2 copies of Slaked Thirsts. And so if you read that, it says that you can always just cycle it, spot a dwarf to draw a card, or the more meaningful use is if this card is stacked on a dwarven condition, spot a dwarf companion and discard this event to exert a minion twice. So like with preparations, for example, you can exert a dwarf companion, stack the Slake Thirst from your discard pile on preparations, and then during the maneuver phase, use preparations ability to exert a minion twice. That's another Inkea type protection effect where you can, during the maneuver phase, exert a minion using the Slaked Thirsts. So that's what I really like, is the combo with Slake Thirst and preparations. We're just running 2 copies of each of those, but if you get those matched up, it's a really cool combo. And when I say matched up, you pull all this stuff out of your discard pile, so you can very easily match stuff up. So this is going to be the most difficult deck to play too. I've tried to test it, and it is so hard to possibly keep track of all of your triggers. So the next event here, one of my favorites again in the Lord of the Rings TCG, is the full 4-play set of A Wizard is Never Late. Just a beautiful classic foil from the Fellowship of the Ring. You guys know what it does. Plays a character, a Gandalf character from your draw deck. That's obviously Grimbeorn. That's obviously Radagast. Also, don't forget, character does qualify. Barlaman, Hugin, those are characters too. So, Palando, not a character. Remember that. Followers, not a character. Allies, character. I don't make the rules. That's just the rules. So we've got 4 Wizard is Never Late. Then we do have 1 copy of Saved from the Fire. 1 copy being if you needed to reuse it, you could. But this is so good to get your 3 key Gandalf cards. Now you're probably killing off like a Radagast to do that. Or more likely, if you're not getting Gandalf cards, you're killing off a dwarf to get the exact dwarf cards you need as well. That's why we do run Durin as well as Dane, so that if you need to kill one of them to get your exact cards that you need, it's no problem. Because again, you don't really need Durin and Dane going. There's no purpose of that. So you can feel free to burn one of them if you need to. Then we do have one of our best protection spells in A New Light. Again, this is one of the more unfair cards from set 17. It just says, spot a wizard to return a minion to its owner's, spot a wizard to return a minion to its owner's hand from its owner's discard pile. So you basically give them a cheap scrub minion out of their discard pile. Well, why would you want to do that? Because then you get to reveal their hand and discard their very best minion out of their hand. So this just makes sure that if there's a minion you really don't want to be seeing, that you're not going to be seeing it. Because we got 4 copies of that. You can recur it. You play this during the Fellowship phase. One thing to keep an eye on too, just small little effect, is this is a spell. So, if you're playing it when you have a Gandalf's staff down, it is free. So, cool effect there, but an overpowered card that, were it not released in set 17 would have been toned down. Then we have another one of my favorites, the Roll of Thunder. So this is a actually very hard card to find, being that it's only an uncommon, but it's an absolute staple across all formats that Gandalf and Set 4 are legal in. So movie, block, expanded, of course, anything. Roll of Thunder, very popular card because it's just Fellowship or Maneuver, spot Gandalf to discard a shadow, possession, or artifact. Just super, super versatile spot removal. A little costly, but again, just super versatile spot removal in Roll of Thunder. Then we do have mass condition removal can be resolved with Deep in Thought. You're going to have 4 4 Twilight tokens down. But if you do, that's just going to one-sided wipe all shadow conditions. So we got a couple copies of that. Again, Gandalf events are super easy to access and recur with the packages that we have in here with the Long Stem Pipe, with Barlaman, with Grimbeorn and the Bjorning Axe. It's so many different ways to get things back. Then as far as playing the next site, we do have 2 copies of Speak Friend and Enter and 2 copies of Traveled Leader, just 2 different ways to play sites, whether you're doing that in Fellowship or in Maneuver. And of course, any of them can do in Regroup. And what you're wanting to do typically with that, we'll look at the sites here very briefly, but typically what you're doing with that is you want to recur a Mythlond for yourself so that you can heal each of your characters. You know, that'll heal your Grimbeorn, that'll heal your Barlaman. Again, Barlaman is a character to just let you keep taking those events back over and over. So recurring Mythlond is the best thing you're going to want to do with that. Then, getting down to the wire here, we do have just Citadel to Gate. That just removes all threats and heals all companions of one culture. So just a nice cleanup card if you're facing some issues. On your doorstep, this is just place a card from the discard pile on top of your draw deck. Again, similar to Hugin, but this works for any culture that you have a companion of. Just if you really, it's an odd card, but if you desperately need to get a card back, you can do that. I just kind of noticed here, this is the noble leaders in the background there, these little statues in Denethor's throne room. It's kind of cool. But yeah, not a card you see every day, but very specific for this deck. This is a card you see all the time in Expanded, Something Slimy. So we run a full play set of that. That, of course, we will pull off of the Damned Gate stream. And what it does is it says, spot Smeagol to play a free People's Condition from your draw deck. So any condition doesn't have to be a Smeagol condition. This is an absolute Expanded staple where you use Damned Gate stream to pull Something Slimy, and then Something Slimy to pull any condition. And obviously we have tons of conditions, so we do run the full play set of that. And lastly, 2 copies of One Good Turn Deserves Another. That's another card you can pull off the Damned Gate stream. Again, I'm not wanting to make this sound like you can do this over and over. You only get to choose one Smeagol card off of this because it's at the start of the Fellowship phase. So you have to choose one copy of One Good Turns Another, or one copy of Something Slimy, and that's all you get. But this one is really nice to have because it's, again, the same concept where you can just keep recurring the same site over and over. Because if you see here, this you can take back to your hand, actually. So this one, just in and of itself, allows you to keep recycling that site at the cost of a burden. But you play it, burden yourself, take it back to your hand, play it, so that you can just keep recurring the same sites over and over. Then that rounds out our events. And then just a quick run through our sites. I'm just going to show you the sites that are pertinent to the Free Peoples. And that is Damned Gate Stream, which we were just talking about, to pull a Smeagol card. Mythlond, that we were talking about, to heal your characters. We do have Neeker Breaker's Bog, which does kind of the same thing. Heal every character with resistance 5 or more. But it does exert every other character, so be careful about that. And allies don't have resistance, so this would exert your allies. So this also has shadow implications, of course, if your opponent gets a burden on them, or 2 burdens, I believe it is, 5 or more. Yeah. So basically, you can use this offensively or defensively. The offensive best one, of course, is Mythlond. And then Karis Galadhon, this is to stop you from being swarmed. And these are both shadow sites, the stairway and the cavern entrance. The only reason I reference these is that they are both underground. So for purposes of your Realm of the Dwaro Delph, when you're adding damage +1, if you're at those sites, you do get to add the damage +1 on top of the strength +1 that you add everywhere. So that is our Free People's Side. Whew. Well, that was quite a journey, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the deck tech. As you can hopefully see from just me talking, there's so many intertwined interactions here. I'm sure there's some that I missed, but just giving you an idea of, try to imagine keeping track of all these interactions while you're just throwing massive amounts of cards into your discard pile. So you're definitely going to want to keep your discard pile sorted and organized while you're playing this deck, because there are so many things you can do out of the discard pile here. So that was our Realm of Dwaro Delph Free People's Side. Stay tuned next time for the Shadow.